So I've built my gable end, and my bottom of my plate is tacked on that line. Now I just need to square this wall up.
Listen, dude, if I don't make it into every movie, how am I supposed to become a celebrity?
When you're squaring a wall up, you always want to pull from the same points on both corners. So I'm always going to hook onto this bottom plate, and I'm going to measure to the top plate. I'm not going to go to the top plate because this is 3.5 inches longer, and it's not on both ends. So I'm just going to measure to this point right here, and I have 148 and 3/4. 148 and 3/4. Now I'm going to check the other side. 149 and a half. 149 and 1/8. When you're squaring a wall, it's really important that you get it exactly the same two numbers. When you get them exactly the same, it's going to make your walls level on the inside. And I have both those numbers the same. I'm going to put all my weight on the wall, and then I'm just going to do a tack nail from the top plate down into the floor of the trailer. That way it doesn't move. Now, just because it's tacked, it doesn't mean it won't move. So tread lightly when you're walking on this, so you don't affect anything. You might have noticed I haven't done bolts to tie the wall down to the trailer. One reason I haven't done that is because this 2x6 is bolted into the framing, and my plywood is going to run down onto this, and it's going to tie all that together. So if I do add those bolts, they're going to have an eye hook on the end, on the bottom, so that I can tie the trailer down. So if I have a hurricane or something like that, maybe I won't lose my house. So with that being said, I need my plywood to hang down the thickness of this, which is 6.5 inches. So if I hold my tape measure at 6.5 inches, and I'll mark 4 feet. So one thing I can do now is I can just hook onto the bottom plate and measure up to that mark, and it's 41.5 inches. And I can transfer that mark over to the other side. When I'm snapping this line, I don't want this chalk line to touch the deck until I'm ready to snap it. So I'm going to pull it really tight and bring it down to my mark. And I'll snap it. When I raise it up, I'm going to bring it away from that line so I don't get like an extra snapped line. A step that's really important is to make sure that the stud that's running on the end of the wall is running perfectly straight. If it's got a bow out, it's going to affect this wall that runs into it. So I'm just going to sight it, and if it has to come in, I'm going to figure out a way to bring it in. And I figured a way out. Since this stud is connected to the jack and it's connected to the window, and it's also hanging off the end of the trailer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a block of wood. I'll place it right here. I want this jack stud to be maybe bowed in maybe a 1/16 of an inch. If it's bowing out just a little bit, it's really going to affect other things in my tiny house. After I drove it over right there, I sight it again and make sure that it's running perfectly straight, maybe just a little bit in. Typically I wouldn't sight every stud, but since this is my house, I'm just going to look at every single stud. This one's got to go over a 1/16 of an inch. This one too, and that one a lot. So to make these studs straight, I sighted it and it needs to go over about a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm just going to push it over with my foot. When I move it over a 1/16 of an inch, I'm just going to place a nail on the side of the stud. I'm not going to put it into the stud. And what that'll do is it'll hold it straight. And I'm going to do that to every single stud so that all the studs are straight. Once I tack them in place, I'm just going to go back and sight them again to make sure that they're pretty good. Which, of course they are. That is not, but that's all right. Ain't nobody going to know except for me and you. And I only get about 50 views per video, so I'm good. 149 and 3/16. When I built houses professionally, I always said that if I were going to build my own house, that I would glue the plywood down to the studs of the wall. This is a step you don't really need to do, but to me it's going to add a lot of strength to the wall. Since I'm adding glue, I'm going to get my measurements before I glue it, because if you get glue on your tape measure, you might as well just throw it out. So I'm going to hold 3.5 inches on this end of the wall, so my plywood's hanging over, and I'm going to measure to a stud so that it's 1/2 and 1/2, which, because I did my layout on 16 inches on center, it's going to be a 1/16, and it's 80 inches. So I'm going to take a full sheet, I'm going to mark it at the 80 inches I'll hook my chalk line on and I'll cut that. The plywood I'm using is 4-ply 1/2 inch CDX. The 4-ply is how many different layers of plywood are in it. The C, D, and X. The C stands for a C grade plywood. This would be the D, where it has minor imperfections in it. You always want the C side exposed to the outside of your house. And the X stands for the glue that they use to adhere the different layers of plywood. X stands for exterior, which, why didn't you use E, CDE? But hey, whatever. CDX, 1/2 inch. A lot of people use OSB, oriented strand board. OSB is 1/3 of the cost of this regular plywood. This stuff though is top notch. If you're gonna build a house, I strongly recommend spending the extra money and getting this plywood. OSB, when it comes in contact with water, it acts like a sponge and it expands considerably. And within 10-15 years, it's literally going to be sawdust. Also, if you're using like Zip System is OSB with an expensive spray paint put on it, which is Tyvek paper basically. So what they've done is taken a poor quality plywood, applied another layer of glue to the outside of it, and now they're charging more money for it. I built houses for years. I've done one house in Zip System. I didn't really like it. This stuff, I've taken houses apart before. This has always stayed the same, even after 20, 30, 40 years. Is that my plywood rant? Is my plywood ran over? Good. So again, the same glue that I use for my floor plywood, I'm going to use for my wall plywood. It's basically a subfloor adhesive or a construction adhesive, and it's top notch. I'm going to just make sure I got a good bead down all the studs and down the length of my plate. So I have my 1/2 inch sheet of plywood. I'm going to make sure the C side is up, which is going to be the nicer looking side. I'm going to make sure I'm 1/2 and 1/2 on my stud, and I'm running parallel with my red line. And I'm going to drop it, again keeping my foot on it so it doesn't slide forward. Beautiful for spacious skies. So I switched my gun over to shoot the ring shank galvanized nails. I'm always going to start in a corner where it's 1/2 and 1/2 on a stud. Make sure I'm 1/2 and 1/2, good with my line, and I'll put one nail, and I'll come down to the other end, get it good with the line, then I'll put a nail. Now this point right here, you want to put a nail in the top of each stud, jack, king stud, so that you know where they are when you're going to back nail it. You want that nail to be directly in the center. You're not going to be like that, are you? You're going to act up already? We just started. Right there I just marked the bottom of the plate, so when I'm back nailing, I know to stay above that line. Now you can back nail that piece of plywood right now if you want, or I'm just going to go back and back nail the whole wall at one time. Now you might want to put a reference mark at 4 feet so that your glue doesn't go past. Make sure I'm 1/2 and 1/2, pull back. And again, I'm going to put this one 1/2 and 1/2 where it's got to go. Put a pivot point there. I'll bring this down. I believe the manufacturer recommends placing an 1/8 inch gap in between here for expansion and contraction of the sheet of plywood. If you want to do that, you can. I'm not going to because I've never done it before and I've never had any problems. If you were going to plywood and cut your windows out, right now is a good time to mark all your windows. What I do is take a speed square and mark where the opening is on both sides. And I also measure down to my sill and put a mark there. And right now you can also measure up to the top of your header, which is 21 3/4. mark that right there, and then just so you know, place an arrow up so you'll know that when you put this sheet of plywood, if you measure up 21 3/4, that's where it needs to get cut. This glue is the devil. It's the devil. That's the devil speaking. Oh, that was a hard hit. If your plywood's hanging over, like I did, I ran it long, I'm just going to snap one line, making sure that it's 3.5 inches over from that last stud so that it will tie into this longer wall. I'll snap a line and I'll cut that. Peanut, stop eating grass.
I'm stuck on it, man. I'm hooked on grass. I can't get off of it, man. It's a serious problem.
Now that you have all your plywood down, you can go back and snap all these lines and cut your window out. Since I don't have my windows yet, and I don't know what I'm doing with windows yet, I'm going to leave the plywood in. I'm going to Tyvek paper over it, just so my house is completely watertight. One thing I see a lot of people do is running their plywood vertically. You can do that. There's no code violation against that. When you're back nailing, you're trying to figure out if you're hitting the stud. When you hit the stud, it's going to make a real solid noise, and the gun's going to have more of a kick. If you don't hit the stud, it's going to be a hollow sound, and the gun won't have a kick. If you have headphones on right now, take them off, because I'm going to leave the volume the same so that you can hear the difference. This right here is going to be a stud, and this is going to be no stud. Oh, what a save. Again, I'm going to go with the same nailing pattern that I did on my subfloor. It's going to be 4 to 6 inches on a joint right here and 6 to 8 inches in the field. You don't need to measure that, just do it by eye. If anything, go a little bit less. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you will, hit the subscribe button, thumbs up, and if you would like to, top right corner, make a donation. Thanks for watching, guys.